Has she been directly questioned about her involvement?
No, which is surprising to me because, it's now documented that she and her team coordinated
Right.
the overt act these men are charged with. So that's the thing that is disturbing. Entrapment is illegal. That is the overt act, was the recons of the vacation cottage. She planned it. She organized it with the FBI, the Attorney General's office. She has never had to answer any questions. Moreover, in the state case, for the guys in Jackson County, Joe, Pete, and Paul, she was able to give a 3-minute long victim impact statement that was highly prejudicial. They played it in open court. She's the governor. You think that the judge is going to go against her? You think he's going to impose a fair sentence when she's saying throw the book at them?
Right.
We need to make an example of them. We need to protect democracy. She made it about lone wolf shootings, J6, and defending democracy. And it's like, meanwhile, she organized this stuff. She created the overt act that they charged these men with. She's also the head of the Michigan Department of Corrections, technically.
Oh, I didn't know
So these men, yeah, after they were sentenced, they were taken, they were in MDOC, Michigan Department of Corrections. And mind you, these are the state guys. They had not been charged federally.
that.
They'd been charged at the state level with just providing material support, the gang affiliation and felony firearm. And they, on the eve of their appeals, they moved these men from MDOC to federal BOP facilities across the country. They sent Joe to Pekin, that's in Illinois, FCI Pekin. They sent Paul to Schuylkill, that's in Minersville, Pennsylvania. And then they sent Pete to FCI Gilmer in West Virginia. So that really made it impossible for their families to meet with them, for their lawyers to meet with them. We have proof of legal mail being returned to sender, where they weren't allowing these men to have their transcripts to prepare for their appeal. So a year and a half goes by. They're still in federal facilities. I have to, raise hell basically and fight about this. Finally, these lawyers are filing motions to bring these men back. So finally, they've been brought back. Just recently, there was supposed to be an evidentiary hearing where we were going to find out why this happened, right? Who made the decision to send these men, to transfer them out to federal facilities? They weren't charged federally. And I can't say yet, not for another week, but there's stuff is going to come out about that. We'll just say that information is out there about what happened and why. Somebody made the decision, we'll just say, that some individual had to sign off on 3 different transfer orders. That person had been subpoenaed, and they were supposed to testify at this evidentiary hearing that's supposed to be on the 19th of this month.
Whoa.
Now, the government, I'm sorry, the state of Michigan, it is really the government, but the state of Michigan doesn't want this to happen. The Michigan Attorney General's office has effectively postponed that evidentiary hearing. They're going to say, well, look, we remedied the situation by bringing them back to Michigan. So now that they're back, a year and a half later, no, most people's appeals are already done by now. It's still too little too late. You can't just, but really, they don't want them to look into why this happened, who signed off on it. And that's what people are going to find out, is that these men they shouldn't be tried in Michigan courts. They shouldn't be held in custody in Michigan either. They should actually be out on bond pending appeal. They were out on bond during the trial before their conviction and sentencing, and they never violated those conditions. They maintained the ankle bracelet or whatever. So let them out on bond pending their appeal, so they have the proper time to confer with their lawyer, since they've already been set back so much. Well, this is right. All of this is happening right now as she decides to drop her book and do her national book tour defaming these men. She's trying to interfere in their appeals. The Sixth Circuit right now is considering taking up Adam and Barry's case. Adam and Barry were the ones convicted federally and a hasty retrial. So the first federal trial ended in 2 acquittals and a mistrial on Adam and Barry. So it was very bad for the government. No convictions, 2 acquittals. They had to retry Adam and Barry, and they basically did so in what I would call a Soviet kangaroo court, right? Where you can't introduce evidence, you can't call witnesses, and then they can just cherry pick the worst things you said while intoxicated and while the FBI was amping you up and asking you hypothetical questions, like hypothetically speaking, when would it be okay to use violence? Taking that response out of context, playing a 1-17-second clip like that and saying, basically, listen to these awful things they said. You should convict them because of words.
So it sounds like the establishment media. That's exactly what the media does today.
That the feds did. So they were convicted in this hasty retrial. Judge Yonker in the retrial limited the defense's ability to cross-examine the two men who took plea deals. They put time limits on the defense, but not on the prosecutors. They could talk, they could do direct examination for an hour, hour and a half, but the defense was told they had 25 minutes. And then Judge Yonker started counting down. He would go, 5 minutes left. He'd say things like, you really want to waste the last of your time with this crap line of questioning in front of a jury, basically demeaning the defense. He made it really clear that he was rigging that trial. So, of course, Adam and Barry were hastily convicted there. They put the state cases. There were 2 state cases, the 3 guys in Jackson County, 5 other guys in Antrim County. They paused those state hearings because they had to first convict Adam and Barry as terrorists, because they couldn't charge the state guys with providing material support unless they convicted the federal guy. So it's like super crazy how all of this has happened.
It sounds like, it reminds me of, there's a journalist who was at the Capitol on January 6th, and when his court date came around, they were basically prosecuting him, saying, you're domestic terrorist, you've stormed the Capitol, you're a danger to society. But he was there as a journalist and he had credentials, and when it came time for evidence, he presented years worth of credentials from various things he's reported on around the country, and the judge said you cannot show that in court. Yeah.
Wow.
It's really scary stuff.
That's exactly what happened with the Whitmer case. Anything that was exculpatory, they just wouldn't allow in. I usually have my little binder here. I have this binder where this is what they're trying to, and this is really what the appeals are going to focus on, is all these exculpatory statements, right? So you have the guy saying things like, when the FBI suggests that they kidnap a governor, you have one of the guys saying, like, absolutely not. We're not going to be black bagging politicians, taking them out of their cars, arresting them, whatever. Like, those statements, there's tons of them, but there's also incriminating things said by the FBI that show how they planned and set up every single thing that was used in this case. And so the defense put together 250 of these, and they called it out of court statements they wanted to introduce as evidence. They wouldn't allow them in. Judge Yonker made up this bogus hearsay ruling where he said that from a audio recording of an FTX that's maybe 5 hours long, the government can cherry pick anything that sounds, anything of the guy saying offensive things, the government could take that out and play it. But anything exculpatory the men said or incriminating that other informants or whatever they said on the same recording, they called that hearsay.
That is infuriating.
And wouldn't let them admit it. It's crazy. So you're going, well, we know it exists. We know it's there, but the jury doesn't get to hear about it. That's the kind of stuff that they did. And so the Sixth Circuit right now, they asked, so they don't usually do this. This is what gives me hope that they're going to take up the case. They had oral arguments on it, and the defense argued that, hey, we didn't get to introduce evidence, we didn't get to call witnesses, and all these other things happened. There was allegations of juror bias. One of the jurors in the retrial, when he got jury summons, said that, I hope I get on the Whitmer case because I'm going to hang those guys. And that wasn't properly investigated. That guy actually became the jury foreman.
Oh, wow.
And so there's a lot, right? That should have had a proper Remmer hearing. Then there was the issue of the Bertelmann's rule, which was putting the time limits on them, the arbitrary time limits. So basically the Sixth Circuit said, okay, well, provide additional briefings on if these exculpatory out-of-court statements and the incriminating ones from the informants, if they were allowed in, would that have substantially changed the outcome of the case? The defendant said yes, the government did their briefing. So right now, the Sixth Circuit is considering sending that back for a new trial, but saying now you have to allow them to introduce evidence and call witnesses. The government does not want this.
Of
If
course.
they have to do that, I think they won't even retry them.
Right.
Whitmer will say, listen, I'm being magnanimous and I understand these men are human too, and they've done enough time. You know, she's had them in supermax prisons, the two federal guys, and then the state guys they sent to federal prisons anyways. So she'll be like, oh, we're going to be gracious and just not retry them.
How
But if
nice.
they do, it would be crazy. And then, of course, she's going on and she's just trying to intimidate, I think, the Sixth Circuit into not giving them a retrial. When she's going on national TV saying Trump tried to assassinate me, who do you think she's trying to influence? And
Right.
then I think about Judge Wilson, who is going to be making his decision on whether these men should be allowed out on bond pending appeal so they can properly participate in the appellate program. When he sees his governor and his boss and the head of the MDOC on national television saying things like this, that's not supposed to influence him.
Right.
Or the Michigan Attorney General's office or any other people in Michigan who she's their boss.
It's all narrative control.
There should be a gag order on her right now while these
Right.
appeals are going on. She's the so-called victim. And Dana Nassel, by the way, the Attorney General, she was somebody that was identified as a potential target. Now, this is all made up, but the FBI claimed that she was a target. So she herself is a, quote, victim in the case. How, if the state of Michigan, the Michigan Attorney General's office and governor's office are the victims, how are they also the people prosecuting the case?
Well, that's the kind of logic. That's the kind of logic they roll with. When it comes going back to the Whitmer recon thing, can you think of or can you anticipate any defense she might have when it comes if someone is able to confront her? Like, how can she play that out?
Oh, she'll just say, "Oh, I was just assisting and cooperating with law enforcement." Like, she'll just play dumb.
Just more victim
And
status stuff.
I think also, too, a lot of that stuff, and this is another interesting thing, but I'd go off on a tangent to get into this. I think a lot of that was handled by her lawyer, her private attorney at the time, who I believe was the liaison between, and I don't know this for sure, but we do know she coordinated the recons and stuff like that. But I think that the person who was the liaison and did most of the talking was her personal attorney at the time. And he ended up having to, so he used to be her private attorney. His name's Mark Toten. He was promoted to be the assistant U.S. attorney or the U.S. attorney for the Western District. So he was going to be on the retrial of Adam and Barry. He recused himself. And the defense lawyers tried to FOIA his recusal memo because they were thinking the same thing I'm thinking, that this guy's the one who did the coordinating.
Wow.
They never provided the recusal memo where he said why he had to recuse. And so I'm thinking that, yeah, that's
You're just
probably
connecting
why.
all these dots. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. When it comes to the OCEs, do you ever feel like you're coming in contact with them on Twitter? Like, do you feel like they come after you?
Probably.
Like, are you suspicious of people, and why are you suspicious of certain people? Do they speak a certain way?
So what's weird about the OCEs, like you wouldn't initially recognize it. So the way that they used one of them, Lauren Hastings, Special Agent Lauren Hastings, was operating a persona of a woman named Elise Marie. Elise Marie is a girlfriend of a man named Mark Woods, who is a patriot interested in the militia. And basically, she befriended Adam Fox, the guy who they framed as the ringleader, the homeless man living in the basement of the vac shack. His girlfriend, Amanda Keller, this woman befriended her online first. So they used the women because, oh, women are easier to manipulate, right? We'll use that as our in. Wow. We'll befriend Adam's girlfriend. And so she just kind of said, oh, my boyfriend, Mark, you know, he's interested in firearms, stuff like that. He's real interested in joining a militia, but he's not really part of one right now or whatever. And basically that's how they introduced undercover UCE Mark, whose real name is Special Agent Mark Schweers. I like to name and shame them, by the way.
Yeah,
who
I
was
like that
posing
you do that.
as Mark Woods.
That's
Oh,
great.
I always let them know because I know they watch, and I like to let them know I haven't forgotten them,
hello
and I'm
out
not
there.
letting them off the hook.
Thanks for watching.
So that's how they do it, though. Isn't that insidious? And so she introduces, she says, let's link up Mark and Adam. And what's crazy about this is that this is in, like, I want to say maybe May of 2020. In June of 2020, Special Agent Mark is at some point, so there's this meeting that the FBI puts on in the basement of the Vax Shack. This is the one that Paul was at, where Adam was saying kind of crazy things that the FBI had been amping him up for. And Mark Schweers, Mark Woods, was there also. And he's the one, and we know that the FBI did this, that sent these pictures to Adam Fox over Facebook of Mackinac Island. And this is the private residence of the governor there on Mackinac Island. And what's crazy about these pictures, and they put them, I don't know why they did this, but they put them on the projector during the final state trial of every single picture. It was obvious that this was FBI doing this shit. He had close-up pictures of even the gate and the lock, and I'm like, wait a second, this is private property. How did he get these pictures this close?
He's trespassing, yeah.
He just told Adam that I just drove my car up to check out the cottage. Hey, check this out. So that's the FBI went and took pictures of her cottage in a really crazy detailed way of giving somebody a complete layout of the Mackinac Island property. And even like they even took a Google map aerial view and they drew these lines and marked it up and stuff and then sent the map to Adam. And then they were using the pictures on the map as evidence against Adam. But while admitting the FBI sent it to him and not saying which agent at the FBI actually went and took the pictures. We know Mark Schweers sent them to him on Facebook, but who actually went and took these pictures?
Right.
They wouldn't say, they wouldn't identify the person and who made the map. We just know it was the FBI that did it.
Can we just take a second to say Mackinac Island is a very beautiful place. Strange.
Oh, yes.
For those who don't know, you can't have a car on Mackinac. I think there's only horse and buggies. I've been there for the stone skipping competition once, and it's a really interesting place, known for really nice fudge. I did not know that that's where they keep the Wicked Whitmer.
Yeah, well, not anymore.
Dark Island. Well, yeah, not now.
Now they've exposed the residents, just like they decided to put Barry Croft's social security number right up there on the screen for all and sundry to see, and everybody's personal addresses, of the defendants, their families, in a way to completely disrespect them and their privacy. They put phone numbers up there. They didn't make any redactions, but they would redact things, of course, about the FBI and their 12 informants and undercover agents. And
I wonder how much of our tax dollars goes to FBI cosplaying these situations and then feed the information to the CIA's Mockingbird media, and it's just a feedback loop of fake crap constantly. Like, it seems as if a lot of this stuff, and we don't know what happened yesterday yet, but I can't help but see certain things. It doesn't seem possible that this guy, this 20-year-old, can just do it. Perhaps he had help. Perhaps it was just a flaw of incompetence. But I really don't know. When you see these people, the undercover people online, like, are you watching for certain types of red flags? As I see people post, things about "show me your guns." That to me on Twitter, that to me is like, don't do that. Don't do that. I get it, but don't do that. Are there other things that you watch for?
What's so crazy about this is it's hard to say, and I don't want to be. So one of the things about the Whitmer case, and one of the goals the FBI has, is to make everybody think that organizing in real life is too dangerous. Don't do it. Don't go meet with people. Don't train. Don't exercise your rights. These men, militia groups have existed in America. It's an American tradition. And in Michigan itself as a state has a history of having it being a big militia state, right? This is not uncommon, and none of the stuff that occurred during this was illegal. And like, they themselves had to admit this at many times. Like, they took a video of Paul while he was training to get a CPL license, and then they played that video and tried to make it look like that was him running around with a gun and an FTX. They didn't even say that this was from his firearms training.
Wow.
And so they could do things like this. But the goal is to get people scared. I think they don't want people talking to each other. As far as red flags to look out for, it's tough, right? Because sometimes you have people who are just boisterous and say stupid stuff online and they have no intention of doing anything. Barry Croft was one of those. He was a big talker, right? But if you know him in real life, he doesn't do anything. What is creepy to me about what I've seen with these informants is it wasn't like that. There would be no real red flags online because they're smarter than that. What they would say is, hey, let's get together. Let's get a group together of guys, let's meet together. And, once they have you there, they want to establish a rapport and a relationship with you. Look for the red flags as somebody who, like Dan Chappell, would be there at 2:00 in the morning if you needed him. If you had a flat tire, he comes out, he's helping. He may even offer to pay for it if you don't have the money to get the tire fixed.
Right.
If you can't afford lunch one day, he would buy you lunch. He would pick you up and take you to events. It's things like that, paying for your hotel room.
Right.
They put Brandon up when they invited him to one of these FTXs because he couldn't afford to go otherwise. For Barry, when he couldn't afford to go to the Cambria FTX, the FBI had their informant, Jenny Plunk, say, oh, I'll drive from Wisconsin to Delaware to meet you in Delaware, pick up your 3 daughters and drive with you to Wisconsin so you don't fall asleep. Like, they would make it happen, right? Anything to facilitate you showing up to an event. That is something to be careful of. For Thomas Leaguer, who was the Wisconsin target, Steve Robeson was trying to get him to be a Kyle Rittenhouse. Oh yeah, the FBI was all over that stuff that was happening in Wisconsin. They had their informant telling Thomas Leaguer he should go out armed and guard the business fronts and stuff. Now, Thomas has no training. Why should he go do that? But it's like they want to put somebody in a position where something bad could happen. It's things like that. Now, as far as things they would say at these militia meetings, that's even harder because at these meetings, when you think you're just in the privacy of your friends, you're drinking, you're smoking, you're kind of venting and you're ranting, letting loose, there's the assumption that it's safe to do that. That's what all Americans do. We do it around our dinner table. We just don't have the FBI recording it.
Or do we?
Or do we? We have Alexa doing it.
Like it's coming. They got speakers in the sky
we
with
have
their
these
spy
ring
satellites.
devices now.
It's tough because
goodness.
I'm trying not to be jaded because there are nice people in the world who do want to genuinely help you.